is that the Premier made Magala Ekuruleni last year, opening of legislature. Goti yiziphi izinto kunguthi usalale emuva kuzo, he did not fulfill them, and then now namhlanje he took this opportunity to make more and more promises, something which you think ukuthi, you know what, lento izoshiya abahlali basamangele when they were expecting it.
Yes, well, there was one particular promise that the Premier made, and that was to meet business people within 200 days of making his speech.
Yes.
And the reasons for meeting business people, even at the time, we shilo during the speech last year, but it wasn't really very clear. I mean, I have a copy of the speech. I can actually look at it and read it to you. Now, we never had feedback from the Premier or his office or even Okpol. I always forget the full name, my acronyms. It's one of the committees that my colleague who I'm with here, who's the caucus whip, in our caucus sits on. And we've never had feedback on those meetings with those 200 business people. That's just one small example. One of the other things that the Premier did was to talk about to try to politically manage the issue of e-tolls. He then promised to set up a review panel, which he did. But you see, the critical factor with that fact, the fact that he actually promised to set up a review panel, and he did, is because that's an easy thing to do for the ANC. The ANC is obsessed with events. They're obsessed with spending and booking conferencing venues to discuss things for time immemorial. They do that. He's done that. That's about the only thing he has done. And in doing that, he's actually taken us back as Gauteng residents. To what extent it affects the residents of Ekurhuleni, one can debate that. But the issue of e-tolls is something that would affect even the cost of living for an average person or even unemployed, even a school kid, because it hikes up inflation and it hikes up basic costs through the transportation, additional cost of transportation, and it in essence becomes an additional tax. So by him promising to set up a review panel last year, he was indirectly creating an impression in our minds that this thing here, e-toll, is going to be dealt with decisively. It wasn't. This year, in his speech, again, he talks about another review.
Yeah, because, you know, I found that to be very contradicting, because he emphasized more on the creating, boosting the economy, and how can the economy be boosted on top of Indabayama e-toll, Luxanama e-toll? For me, I found that to be very contradicting. But now let's talk about it, because for someone who's listening to Kasi FM now, people were expecting indaba ye job creation as to top the agenda in his speech, indaba ye housing as well to top the agenda, because we know good nendaba ye health as well. I heard good, we know food to good Department of Health not only in Gauteng but nationally is in crisis. And do you think good he did his level best in addressing indaba ye housing, in addressing indaba ye health, in addressing indaba ye job creation? Do you think maybe he did justice in addressing those issues?
Not at all. And I'm saying that because to a certain extent he misled the legislature. He misled the legislature.
With us.
He misled the legislature on the basis that the province can build over 600,000 houses in the next 5 years. Now, that has never happened before in the history of this country, in the history of this province. If you look actually back from